Good morning, YouTube. Tire Metalhead Weatherman here. Hopefully you guys are doing well. Man, went on stream last night and we got to see images of a tornado that went through parts of Chicago, even hitting the airport here. Was not expecting to see that yesterday. Things ramped up very quickly. We even had that little 10% tour risk pop up, which was nuts. But that being said, we have more severe weather today, so let's go ahead and get into it. Before I do, of course, make sure you're hitting that like button and hitting that subscribe button. Also, making sure that you get the bell on for all notifications to be on for whenever I make a video. Also, the share button would be good too. But anyway, I have a bimodal slight risk today, and this is towards the western high plains here. Very familiar areas we're seeing, but thankfully Cheyenne and Denver this time look like you guys are out of the slight risk. At best, you're in the marginal for now. But over towards Rapid City, South Dakota, western parts and central parts of Nebraska there, Kansas, and parts of eastern Colorado, Texas and Oklahoma panhandles too, you are under the gun for a slight risk for severe weather. And then over towards the northeast, which is our other mode of severe weather, where we're most likely going to see another squall line develop. Burlington, Vermont there. I really hate to say that Vermont's under the gun for severe weather because we're already dealing with a major flooding situation there. We have Albany over there as well. Binghamton. Binghamton. Scranton. Pittsburgh. Columbus. Cincinnati, Charleston, and Louisville maybe even are in this secondary slight risk here. Like with both of these, all hazards are possible. Main threat is wind. Hail has a hatched risk over towards the western high plains, but we could also see hail over towards the northern and southern ends of the secondary mode. There is also a 5% tour risk over here towards Albany and I guess you would call it, I guess it would be Binghamton. And here's an update right here, just now coming in. And then there's a 2% area over here towards the western high plains as well. But as a whole, looks like we could be in for yet another active day. Here's a look at the upper level jet stream here. And for the most part, it's relatively zonal, so there's a chance for some discrete supercells within that line. Not a high chance, but there's a chance nonetheless. And this is pretty much what led to the severe setup we had yesterday with the Chicago tornadoes. But across the board here, nothing super crazy at the moment. There is a small little maximum that tries to develop. It's not a full-on jet streak, thankfully, so this could limit a little bit of that tornado threat. Nonetheless, though, we can look at some soundings here. We can tell that this is a linear mode even towards the western high plains. Lapse rates are also pretty high here, so we could see some big time hail. We could also see some damaging winds based off of D-Cape here. And also, just like I said, based off the hodograph here, it looks pretty linear at this point. But that's one thing that we're going to have to keep a lookout for. And then over towards this region here, as I said, the upper level jet isn't quite as strong. Severe hazards are a little bit more on the marginal side at this point. Could see hail up to 1 inch in diameter just at severe limits, but of course parameters aren't quite as impressive here. So this is us looking later into the evening. By this point, we're going to lose most of our daytime heating. Our instability will be gone for the most part. Maybe out towards the western high plains and a little further off to the east of there, we could see some storms persisting for a little bit longer, but time will only tell with that. So here we are looking at the mid levels of the atmosphere. We'll look at 500 and 700. Pretty similar look across the board. This is where you start to see a little bit more of that trough. It's more evident in here than it is on the 200, but even so, it's nothing that's super duper alarming. Like I said, this isn't going to be a massive tornado outbreak or anything like that, or it shouldn't be. Mother Nature's surprised us quite a bit this year though, so don't rule it out. As far as parameters are concerned, once again, same thing with the last sounding. Nothing super duper crazy. Mainly looking at a linear type event. There is a decent bit of wind shear here towards the surface and maybe the mid levels, but nothing that would make me believe that there is a tornado threat with this particular sounding. The Cape is pretty impressive over here, as well as D Cape. Lapse rates are high, so again, damaging winds, hail, definitely the main threats out west. And then as we look more so over towards the northeast, it's pretty much going to be a similar deal. More so marginal severe here, based off the based off the RAP, excuse me, where we have a surface Cape at about 1500. More or less just scratching the surface here. Could see a weak supercell come from this. Some decent hail analogs here. And this is probably some of the better lapse rates that we're going to see over here towards this area. We're sitting close to 7, especially towards the mid to low levels. But as far as the mid to upper levels, we're at about a 6.3. You're really going to start to take notice of the hail potential increasing once you get up to about 7 degrees Celsius per kilometer. As far as other parameters here, towards the surface to lower levels here, or mid level, excuse me, EHI is decent, so severe potential does exist. But other parameters kind of lead me to think that it's not going to be anything too crazy. A little bit different from what you're used to in your area, but this is the time of year when the Northeast gets more severe weather. Now let's go ahead and look through 700. It's pretty much going to be a similar deal. Again, nothing I would be too concerned about at this point. If it'll work, there we go. But again, pretty similar deal across the board. 700's a little bit more impressive, but even so, it's not by much. These aren't going to be, this isn't really looking too much like a shortwave system. It seems like we already have all that we need to get these storms initiated here, so to speak. So it's just a little small shortwave trough. Mainly it's going to be more so north of the border that really acts like the north of the border that sounds like a trigger mechanism here. But looking at low level jet, and this is the key factor in tornado genesis, the main area that again I would be concerned about would be more so over towards Albany, New York. See if we can't try to find a Tor sounding. Don't really see too much of one, but there is a decent curve here in the hodograph, so anything that could become discrete here has a better chance of maybe producing. Even then, supercell analogs are not very impressive at all. There is decent surface Cape here, however. There's decent surface Cape, very good downward Cape, and lapse rates are impressive towards the mid levels. So we could see some larger hail here. Also, we could see maybe a tornado, but I would say the chances are kind of low at this point. So as we go later into the evening, threat diminishes with this, of course, just like anywhere else. Towards the backside of this is where the marginal tornado sounding comes in here, but there's also a little bit of a convective inhibition or cap that will try to develop behind this. So it's going to be hard to tell what ends up happening with this. Usually with the model discrepancy like we had yesterday, it wasn't very clear until pretty much a few hours before the event happened. So if you're in these areas, make sure you're staying weather aware today. Of course, once that little area of low level jet clears out, we're pretty much in the clear at this point. As far as moisture returns, nothing really to be surprised about. This has been just the moisture returns. This has been like a hotbed here. Over towards the southeast, we get these dew points into the 70s. Some places even getting into the 80s here, which is crazy. But see those moisture pockets starting to reach up to the northeast here is pretty crazy as well. We've just been stuck in this pattern pretty much all summer for the most part, and it just doesn't seem like it's going to be stopping anytime soon. Today will not be an exception to that. Then when we go ahead and take a look at some of the parameters here, this is a look at Cape. We have both of these areas particularly looking interesting as far as severe storms are concerned. We also have a pretty high Cape over towards the eastern half of where we're expecting the worst of those storms. Again, here's a closer look at the outlook again, and to match, here's a look at our Cape. 2,000, 3,000, even 4,000 joules in some places. So it's a very unstable environment over here, nonetheless. Over here towards New York, of course, we're sitting at about 2,000 joules per kilogram, more than sufficient enough for severe weather. Probably we'll see one of the better torr soundings coming from this, and there you go. There it is. Even then, still, like I said, supercell potential is relatively low. This mostly looks like it could be a linear event. You could see an embedded supercell in there, but based off of some of the other parameters like energy helicity, it's actually decent. It's moderately impressive. And storm relative felicities are pretty strong with this too. It's a decent bit of shear to work with as well. So again, like I said, this has to be watched very closely. So we'll see what happens. I don't know if I'll be able to go live or not yet. This really depends on work and really my tooth too. But overall, it looks like it's going to be a pretty interesting evening. Going to be a very active evening. So last but not least, we'll close this out by looking at what the radar could look like tonight. We also, depending on how strong these storms get, if they get really strong updrafts, you'll see a little black streak on the screen along with these storms. So definitely be on the lookout for that. So storms could fire as early as lunchtime just off of Lake Ontario, Lake Erie. I'm not entirely sure if I got this lake right. I'm pretty sure this is Lake Ontario. I think this is Lake Erie. I think this is Ontario. Feel free to bash me in the comments if you want. I'll just kind of laugh at it and learn my lesson for next time. But anyway, don't see much in the way of updraft helicities here until way late. This might be one here, but it's kind of hard to see at this point. And then here's one here towards the backside of this line. And then after that, things look like they clear up. And then switch over to the western plains. This is our current time right now. As we go later into the evening here, we start to get a couple of storms here. These don't look necessarily like tornadic supercells, but these look like they could be some big hailers here. So we could see some pretty significant hail. And then we see a couple additional storms here. Maybe we could see some damaging winds towards the western half of Kansas here. And then as we go later into the evening, we lose that and start to lose some of the instability, and the storms start to dissipate. But that's pretty much all I got for you guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, you know what to do. Smash that like button, decimate that subscribe button. Also make sure that you get that bell on to be notified of every video. And then also hit that share button as well. This has been Metalhead Weatherman. I'll see you guys later this afternoon. Until then, take care and have a nice day.